Good morning. I'm going to make a loaf of bread today, share my hobby with you, and take you through the whole process and tell you what you need to have a good loaf of bread. First, you need a bread machine. I have the Oster Expressbake machine, purchased at Goodwill for about $5, I must say. I also have another one of these, an older model that I bought a few years ago new. It's still serviceable, but when I saw this one at Goodwill like new for $10, I scooped it up. You can buy bread machines at thrift stores for low money. At least you could where I used to live. These days where making bread is very popular, maybe they aren't there anymore. But anyway, bread machines don't cost that much. It's a wonderful hobby. You will need a bread machine, and if you buy it at a thrift store, make sure it has a little paddle inside. And it's best if the paddle will rotate. Sometimes you'll find them where the paddle is stuck in there. You can still make bread that way, but it's a little harder to clean. You'll need a bread machine. You'll absolutely have to have an electric knife, I do believe. Especially if you want to cut the bread when it's hot. I don't know of any other knife that can do it, but electric knife. Again, you can buy these under $20, I think. Well worth it. And to store your bread, I recommend this. It works perfectly. You can buy this on Amazon. And you'll also need the little bags, the bread bags. Those can be purchased very cheaply on eBay or Amazon. If you didn't have this and just the bags, that would probably work fine as well. I might make them double bags though, just to be sure. That would probably work fine. But I love this too. So that's what you really need. And these are the ingredients we're going to use. Well, you'll need these. You'll need 1.5 and 1 tablespoons. And you'll need the teaspoons and the smaller ones. You will need, for this recipe, 1 cup and 1/4 cup measuring. And I have a little thing here that measures my water. So you'll need 1 1/3 cups of water, I think. One cup, and right here. So you'll also need yeast. This is the only kind of yeast to get. Don't buy the stuff in the jar. That's junk as far as I'm concerned. I love this. It can be purchased on Amazon, less than $10. It will last a long time. You will need olive oil. Usually I use cold pressed or rich taste, but if it's not available, we use whatever we can. It works fine. I love molasses. I'm crazy about molasses. That's my sweetener. You could also use honey. I would not put sugar in my homemade bread. Sea salt. We actually use pink Himalayan sea salt. We can get it really cheap at Tuesday morning store. But if you regular sea salt will be just fine. Or regular salt. So, first thing to do for this recipe is to put in the water. 1 cup. And 1/3. Water, 1 cup, 3/8. 1 cup and then 3/8. Water. Put in your salt. One. And a half. 1 1/2 salt. One and a half tablespoons of olive oil. One tablespoon of molasses. And a little extra for good measure. Generally, you want to be very clear about the ingredients you put in here, very close. But a little extra won't hurt with the molasses. So we've got those 3 ingredients in. Now, and the way I remember these is that you put in 3 ingredients, then you put in the flour, and then you put in the yeast. That's how I remember this, and don't have to write it down. This is the wheat flour I use. This is the bread flour I use. Now, if you wanted to just make countryside bread, you can make it just like this recipe here and don't put any wheat flour in. I think you'll find the bread turns out just great. Put in the wheat flour first. And the reason is, if you make countryside bread with just the bread flour, you'll have to scrape the sides of the bread machine about 5 or 10 minutes into the baking, because the flour will stick on the side of the machine. If you put this in, you don't even have to do that. Okay, 1 cup wheat flour. And today we're going to use 2 1/4 cups of bread flour. Sometimes I will put 1 1/4 cups. In fact, most of the time I put 1 1/4 cup of this and 2 cups of the bread flour. But today I want to make sure my bread rises and looks great for you. With the wheat involved in this bread, sometimes it doesn't rise up and look as wonderful as it does with just the bread flour. So now we need 2 1/4 cups of white flour. One, 2, 3, 1/4, and then a little bit extra just because some of my cups weren't completely full. So, everything is in here except the yeast. And for the yeast, I'm getting low on this. I do love this stuff. One. And then you add a 1/4 teaspoon plus an 1/8 teaspoon. I just do them together. So 1 teaspoon, a 1/4 teaspoon, and an 1/8 teaspoon of yeast. So you put this in so it's nice, it fits down there and locks in place. It won't come out unless you jerk it. Put this down, shut the door, press menu select 3 times. Actually, you only press it twice until it says 3. 3 is for whole wheat. Press start. Always look inside and be sure it's turning around in there. It may be one day you may leave your paddle off and it'll just be going around, and if that happens, you can actually reset the whole thing and start all over again without having to throw your ingredients away, as long as it hasn't started baking yet. But anyway, we don't want to do that. So there's really nothing to do now unless you want to add nuts or raisins. During the process of making the bread, we've got 3 hours and 22 minutes here. There will be some beeping going on. When it starts beeping, you can toss in the raisins or walnuts, or even both if you want. But I'm very busy today. I don't know if I'll hear the beeps. I may be someplace else. If I'm available, I'll put them in there. And if not, we're just going to have whole wheat bread with mixed with countryside white bread, which will be healthy bread and very good. So we'll be back in 3 hours and 22 minutes. So 1 minute to go before my bread is done. For the last hour, the house has been smelling so good. I did hear the beeping going on about half an hour or so, 25 minutes after I began the bread. And So I decided to go ahead and put some raisins in there. I put a cup of raisins and a handful of walnuts, and the loaf looks pretty good so far. Aha! It's done. And that's the beep you'll hear when it's time to put the raisins in. It doesn't last as long. So, let's take it out. Well, that didn't last long either. But it's still... Turn it off. Unplug it. Open it up. Yank it up and be sure and place the towel underneath or you will burn your hands. It's very hot. You will have to remove the bread paddle, most likely. I try to scrape the bread off and push it back in. There, that is a fine loaf. There are raisins and walnuts in there. I wonder if that's going to be any good. Thanks for watching the video. I need some butter. Yeah, I think this will be pretty good. I must say, this is good. Mmm.